Alright everyone, what is going on? Welcome back to the ZHP Garage channel. Hope you guys are all doing well. So we are going to be doing some suspension upgrades on this 68 Volkswagen Bug today. Let's get it loaded onto the trailer right now and we're gonna take it over and do the work to it. Let's go.
All right, we got the street beaster all locked down. Come on, let's check it out. We're gonna get this thing fixed up. Come watch it. All right, let's get this thing unloaded. Show you what I'm working with. I don't know if we need these or not, but we already have them, so we're gonna use them. Let's get this thing out of here. Got it a little close over here. I couldn't quite get in, so had to let it roll back a little. All right, we got the car in position here. Before we get started, make sure you go down, hit the subscribe button. And after the video, make sure you hit the share button, like it, comment, all that stuff. So we're gonna get the parts out here. We're gonna show you what we're gonna be doing to this little 68 Volkswagen, clean second owner. Let's get this stuff out here, show you what we got. So here's the parts we're gonna be installing onto the front of the 68 here, 68 Volkswagen, going to disc brakes. So these are the new rotors. We got the other rotor. Don't laugh, I think it'd be on a motorcycle almost. So these are the front rotors. Get the spindles. Actually not drop spindles because the drop's in the beam. Two of those obviously, the hardware, and the calipers. Fully loaded. Some serious stopping power there compared to the drums. We've got a new pair of front shocks, just a basic KYB gas shock. Here's the front wheels and tires. So here's the rear, and then here's the front. You can see a little bit taller and a little bit wider. So it's a little bit of a stagger. Same wheels though. These are a 914 replica wheel. Here's what it looks like with the center caps in it. When you do this, you want to start the part with a gap first. Is a good idea. Kind of work it in there. There it goes. There's the center cap. Looks pretty trick, huh? New steering shaft. Then we have this is a new drop beam. So this is what's going to be lowering it. We're going to do it's pretty much the whole front suspension is what we're going to be replacing in this Volkswagen here. So I already have it up in the air. As you can see, I'm going to get the tires off and we'll show what's on. We'll show what's currently on it right now. Let me grab a couple tools. So we need to pop these center caps off, and it's a good idea. I mean, a lot of people didn't really take too much concern, but you want to use a rag and be careful to pry behind it. Put the rag on the wheel. Come in here and pop it out so you don't mess it up, but somebody else kind of, over the years, I'm sure a lot of people take these tires off of here. And this little beauty ring comes off. So just make sure that doesn't get messed up, taking these wheels off. We're not gonna, we're putting new wheels on it, so we're just gonna put these and load them up. You see how it's got front drum brakes on it now? It's got different shocks, probably the same. Oh yeah, they are the same shock, but I don't know how old they are, so he just wants to put new ones on it. These are the steering shafts, so there's two different ones. This is a short one, driver's side, long one's passenger side. We're gonna be replacing these also. And then the beam, the whole beam assembly. So the sway bar gets reused. It didn't come with a new sway bar. We've got to double check and see if he wants us to transfer that over or if he's going to get a new one. But more than likely, we're going to transfer that over. So that's what we're going to be taking out of this right now, bone stock. So we're going to get the other tire off. We'll get the shocks out of it. We're going to get started on this thing. Then I'll show you the difference in the old and new, show the new stuff going on. So hold on a second. All right, so we got all the stuff out of this thing. We got the original beam. It's not really much to talk about it. It's drum brakes, not really nothing exciting. I tried to sneak out the steering box. Well, actually, I tried to leave the steering box in there and sneak the beam out because this goes around the upper tube here. And I tried to leave this bolted in. That's one thing I found out you can't get it out. There's not enough room. This is too long, so I had to unbolt it from the steering shaft. Take the steering box out with it. The reason we're changing the shocks, it's the same brand. Just the new ones are shorter because of the beam. It must drop it down more. And then these are the new stuff we're putting on. We already showed. And if you're not familiar with Volkswagens, you see the spindle here. See how this doesn't have a hole in it? This one has a hole in it. The Volkswagens use the driver's front tire for your speedo. So the speedo cable goes through here and runs off of the driver's wheel, your speedo cable. So it's a little different, a little interesting there, fun fact. So I already put the calipers on the brake lines because these thread in, so I didn't want to leak in brake fluid. So I took the wheel cylinders off the backing plates, and then I screwed the brake lines in so that won't be leaking. So there's new calipers already installed. We still need to bleed them, but they're on, and you can see on the calipers that they can go either side because they have a bleeder. So if they're on this side, you got a bleeder on the top. If they're on the other side, you got a bleeder on the top. This is stuff we're using over the upper and lower control arm, I guess you could call them. So that's pretty much the gist of it. So we're gonna get this new stuff. We'll get the beam put back in it. Well, actually, we'll put the steering box on first. Get the beam in it, get the thing put back together. You can check it out. So we ran into our first issue here. So you can see on the old one here is that the steering box goes in around like so. So these are your steering stops. So you can see when you turn the wheel, see how this swings by? It comes up and it'll hit right here. So we put it on the new one here, same way. And then we come in, see it hits right here. There's not enough of a relief to come through. So what we're gonna do is, I think, we're gonna leave the steering box off of it for right now. We're gonna put the beam on it, put the suspension on it, and turn it by hand to load it up, and then we're gonna deal with the steering another day. So we're gonna put the beam in it now. We're gonna hold off on the steering, but it looks like we're gonna have to cut this out, compare it to the old one. See, it's got a lot bigger of a little half pipe than this guy. So we're gonna see if we find any other problems. We'll put the beam in it and see what other problems we run into. So on the beam, it has 2 bolts on top, and then the 4 on the front, and the top has these little rubbers. Make sure to put our little rubbers back in there. Line those guys up. Pretty light with nothing on it, so it's not too bad. We're going live, just like so. Hold it up in there and get your bolts. And these you just want to snug down because you want to get the upper 2 started before you get these all crammed tight. Probably not even snug. We just want to get them close to hold everything in place. Now I'm going to start my upper bolt, which is kind of tricky. I don't know if you're supposed to pull the gas tank out because the gas tank's right here. I don't know what the rules are in Volkswagens, but I didn't have to. It's a little tight, but you can do it without pulling the gas tank. There's another washer up here. So you gotta line up a couple things. Kind of working by braille. Good thing I'm used to being blind. I need to wiggle this a little bit to get it all lined up. Got it. We got it started. Do the same thing. We're just gonna snug this one down. All right, got the top one started. We're starting to get somewhere here.
3 weeks later.
We're back with this 68 Volkswagen. We had some issues with the torsion spring for the front beam. Come to find out, we had the wrong one. This beam, it has a set screw on the driver's side. The set screws on the back, and then the center 2 are in the front, and then the passengers in the front. So the other torsion spring that we had, they were all in the front, and the size was wrong. So we had an issue with that. So we had to get them exchanged. So it's been a little bit since we worked on it, but now we got the correct torsion spring. We got to put this is a new beam we put in it. We showed you that. So we got the front torsion spring and the trailing arms put back on it. We got the sway bar put back on it that we took off on the other side. We popped these off, little clamps. So now we're gonna put the spindles in it, get this front suspension back together. Now we're gonna put the spindles on it and pack the wheel bearings here for the front rotors. The hub and everything is all one assembly. So we're gonna be packing that. So we're gonna put our spindles on first. So this one, lefty tighty, and then the passenger side is lefty loosey. So you go to the right and it actually loosens up. So gotta be careful with that if you playing with the Volkswagens. I'm not the Volkswagen expert, so I don't know what years they changed or if they did change. But on the driver's side, it's righty loosey, not lefty loosey. So we're gonna get this set over here. Probably gonna need the floor jack to get this in here because now we have our tension. We'll see if we can manhandle it. Then on the spindles, the steering is in the rear and also the calipers. So you want to make sure that you don't have you don't try to put that on the passenger side because your steering's gonna be in the wrong spot. So make sure you got it. Steering's on the rear, calipers on the rear. So we're gonna put on the lower first. Just put a little anti-seize on this thing, just lubricate it because it's old and we're reusing the ball joints to help go back together with it. We're gonna snug down the lowers and we'll wait till we get it all together before we really tighten it down. Do the same thing on the upper. So we're gonna see if we can get this guy together. Here we go. This one has a bigger spring on the top because it has the bigger taper for the ball joint. So now that we have both of them on here, it won't load the ball joint all weird. We can tighten them both up now. So this upper, you need to hold this big ginormous nut here that's for your alignment. That's what moves your camber caster. So it's offset. So as you rotate it, it changes the position of the spindle. You need to hold this as you tighten this one up. You might be able to do it if it gets tight in the taper. If not, hold that so you don't wad this all up. Looks like this one's gonna stay held. And these have the nylon lock nuts, so no cotter pins, so you just get them tight. Now we have our spindle on here. Now we're gonna put our rotor on. So these ones didn't have the races installed. We had to We had to put the races in it, both sides. We're gonna take our bearing. We got our little bearing packer here, and we're just gonna set it right in there. Easy way to pack it right here. Squish it down. So you want to pack it. You see it pushes all the way around. It caught a little bit there, but then you know the wheel bearing's packed, and you just get some new grease, and you just go around the outside, just coat the outside of it, and then coat the race. And there you go. Outer bearing's packed, and just get the crazy amount out of the way so it doesn't affect the seal at all. Kind of want to give it a wipe where the seal goes. You have your seal, and see there's a spring, the spring seal. So when you go to put this in there, the vibration, sometimes the spring can bounce out of there, and then it loses tension. It's really not doing anything. So what you can do is get some wheel bearing grease, and you cram it into that groove in 3 spots or so, and it helps keep that spring popping out of there on you. You just want to make sure that the outside of it's dry though. See how we have some grease packed in there? Keep the spring from coming out. Got it all dried up, or clean, wiped off where it goes in. Now we're just going to tap it down in there, and just wipe off the extra grease. Now we're going to do the same to the outer wheel bearing. I'm going to pack it the same way. So now we're just going to hold our outer bearing and just straight put it on there. Kind of work the seal on it. It's going to burp a little bit because it's layer, you know, the grease seals it up. Once we get it on, take our washer, get a little locking tab. Then we're going to take our lock, and see how it has one side where it's machined to, you know, be flat and accurate, and the other side's not. So make sure you just line it up the right way. Then lefty tighty on this one. So going to the left, tighten it down, and then the Allen is the lock. It doesn't have a cotter pin or anything. It uses the Allen. I have no idea why Germans decided to go lefty tighty. I don't know the history of Volkswagen. So I'm just going to use a pair of pliers, and as I tighten this down, I want to rotate it to get everything aligned. So after you get it rotated, nice and snug down, this should probably be about 30 foot-pounds or so, right around there. Nothing super crazy. You want to make sure that it's, you know, no side movement. Spins easy. You don't want to cram on it. After you get it snug down, then we're going to lock up the jam nut here that pinches it together, keeps it from coming loose. So now our speedo cable is ran off of this driver's front wheel. So the speedo cable goes through the center and comes out here. So we're going to feed the speedo cable through the center of the spindle. On the cap, it has a little square notch because the cap spins with the rotor, right? So it's a square drive. The speedo goes through the cap, and it has a little clip, a little C-clip that locks it in place so it doesn't come out and you lose your speedo. So you pull it through enough. You see how the cap goes on the outside, so it has enough room. So we're going to push this in here. Line up your square drive, and then you're going to put your little clip on for your speedo. So we're going to have to get a clip. Our clip was a little old. We tried to give it a little spring, and it didn't like the spring, and it broke. But there's supposed to be so you put the clip on here, hold your speedo, and you pull your speedo back, put on your cap. You want to go around the outside of it. So I just like to use a screwdriver, and I just work it around the outside. Just work the cap on, make sure you got it on all the way, and check it. Make sure no abnormal noises. So see, it's still sticking out, so we'll be able to put the C-clip on there. So now we're going to get some brake cleaner on a rag. So now we're going to put our brake caliper on. We converted this to disc brakes. So we have a little calipers loaded, got a little rubber in here that's keeping the pads from falling out and shipping. So we got a little rubber in here we're going to take out. It's a loaded caliper. You want to make sure the bleeder's on top. And then it comes with alignment shims. So you want to make sure it's centered here where the rotor comes through. So it definitely needs to be shimmed. It's got all kinds of room on this side and not so much on the inside. So we're going to throw a shim on the inside, and we're going to slowly line it up. And you want to make sure, don't tighten it up so much you can't get the bottom one in there. And make sure that your brake line's not all twisted and all weird. So now we got the caliper on there. You want to spin it. Make sure you don't have anything rubbing, no crazy noises. So we didn't bleed the brakes yet, so the piston or the pistons are still all the way in. So the brake pads are still all the way in. So they're not pushed out. So nothing's rubbing on the rotor. Because normally you'd have your pads have a little bit of drag on the rotor, but being that we didn't bleed it yet, that's why there's no resistance yet. But we know the caliper's not rubbing, everything's good. So we got the passenger side all done, like the driver's. We're gonna hold off on the shocks. We're gonna set it on the ground and see where the ride height is. I think the new shorter shocks are a little too short, but we want to get it on the ground and see, because we jacked up the driver's side on the lower trailing arm on the ball joint, and it lifted off of the jack stand, and the shock was still way far away. It was like at least 3 inches away from being where it needed to be. So I think we might have to go back to the longer shocks, but we're gonna get it on the ground first. Before we do that, we're gonna put the steering box back in it and the new linkage, new steering shaft. So this is the passenger side, and then the driver's side. So first we're gonna put the steering box back in it. And like we talked about before, we had the issue with it hitting here on the beam, but we wanna get it in. We could fix it in the car. So I wanna get the steering back together and see exactly how bad it's hitting. We know it's in the right spot instead of just out here on the ground, you know, eyeballed. So we're gonna put the steering box in it now, and then we're gonna get the steering linkage hooked back up, and then go from there.
So much later that the old narrator got tired of waiting and they had to hire a new one.
All right, so we're back here with the Volkswagen again. It's been a little bit. We had some issues last time with the steering hitting the beam, but you can see we got it all. We got the brakes bled, we got the shocks on it and everything. And then this is a problem we're having right here with the steering. So it has this little window, little pitman arm is supposed to swing by. So what I'm going to do is heat this up a little bit, and I'm just going to pry against this pitman arm, and I'm going to pull it over to give it more room, because all this does is it's a little brace for the steering stops here in the back. So once I get this, I'll have the space going by, put the steering stops in it, and this thing's all finished up. We got the Zerks in it, got the ride height adjusted. It's all, oh, we just got to do the clip on this too. That clip broke. I don't know if you remember on that for the Speedo. So we got to get a clip, steering stops, and that. The Volkswagen's back on the road. We turning some Volkswagen. So let's get to turn some, can't say rice. Anyways, so we get the torches here fired up. I'm gonna heat this up. I'm gonna give a little pry, give it some clearance. Step one in making room. You get out the one size fits all wrench. Try to concentrate just on the end here, because once it swings past, it'll make it on the rest of the way in. So we're just gonna heat up where it already has that little dimple. We're just gonna try to dimple it a little bit more. Gonna come in here, pull that guy over a little bit. We almost got it. We did a little test turn, and it makes it on the beginning here, but just down a little bit. It's still just kissing it. So I'm gonna go a little bit deeper here. Ooh, keep going. Ooh, I think we're good. We might go a little more. I don't know. It's pretty close, but nothing's gonna move. I think we should go a tad more though. Why don't you leave it? No, go back in. I'm gonna probably get to the other way. I'm gonna do it a little bit right here, down at the bottom. I think it's still pretty hot. Go figure, huh? So I got it cooled back down now. It said it air cool, so it's down. I mean, it's still a little warm, but you can touch it. So I just wiped off all the burnt paint and stuff that's on there. I'm just gonna hit with some rattle can, just put some paint back on it, sand this kind of burnt stuff off a little bit. A little rattle can, we'll touch it up. Then I'm gonna put some bolts in here for the steering stops. We don't have any, so we're gonna go grab some real quick. We're gonna go on a little test drive. So we're gonna throw the tires back on it. We're gonna take it up the street to the parts store, get a couple things, come back. We're gonna finish the steering stop adjustment, do a little touch up, and get this thing aligned back to the customer. So I'm gonna leave this center cap out, so I don't have to take the wheel back off to put the clip in for the Speedo. So I'm gonna pop the center cap out. We're gonna keep that aside. You gotta love these Volkswagens with their lug studs. You gotta line it up. We found out that the lower ball joint's really close to the wheel weights. So we're gonna have to get these tires, front tires rebalanced. I thought I heard a noise when I was loading it up, but I haven't driven that far yet to see what was going on. But I think I found the noise. So we're gonna take these tires off, move the weights in more to the center of the wheel. So we'll get that taken care of and we'll go get it aligned. Let's get this thing lowered down.
All right, so we got the Bug lowered down back on the ground. It looks pretty cool with those replica 914 wheels. So we didn't show it, but we also did the exhaust on this. We changed out the tailpipes on the exhaust right here. It was nothing crazy, you know, unbolt it, bolt in the new one. So that's why we didn't show it. So it sounds different than stock, so we're gonna start it up right now. We're gonna go drive to the parts store, get our parts, and finish this thing up. Gosh, this thing is so small I could barely put the camera in front of my face. How's it driving so far, sir?
Driving good, driving good.
I thought it was funny. The owner said something about he saw the hot rod stuff we do with the American Muscle, and then he threw this 50-year-old Volkswagen in our face. So, sir, did you get what you need?
Got it, we got it. We get this thing finished up, get it aligned.
Master mechanic said when he went into O'Reilly here, he asked for a bolt and they asked if it was a 4-wheel drive or 2-wheel drive.
So we're back from our little test drive to the parts store. We got our little C-clip on here for our Speedo cable. So now we're gonna put our center cap back on it. So we got that done, and then we got our steering stops in and adjusted. So now we're ready. We're gonna load it back up. We're gonna take it over and get it aligned, and then we're gonna have to get the front tires rebalanced because it knocked the weights off of that one. Probably this one too, it looks like. But that one I saw it hits the wheel is so close to the lower ball joint that it knocked the weights off. So We're gonna have to put the weights more in the center of the wheel, away from the ball joint. So we're gonna have to get the fronts rebalanced. So we'll do that when we get it aligned. So we're gonna get it loaded up now. Take it over.
So it looks like we're not gonna be able to align the Volkswagen today, but we're gonna call it a video because we just simply can't find people in the area that can align it. I don't know what's so special about aligning a 68 Bug.
Nothing.
Nobody has brains, I guess.
No brains in alignment shops.
Everybody's Frankenstein. So we can't align it today. We can't completely finish it, which is unfortunate, but that's the general overview of the suspension upgrade on the Volkswagen Bug.
Beam, the spindles, disc brakes, wheels and tires, inner and outer steering tie rods, dampener shock, little adjustment to the steering, little exhaust. It'll be those race ready.
So if you guys enjoyed the video or if it was helpful in any sort of way for you guys working on your bugs too, please go down below, hit the subscribe button, check out the other videos we got, leave a comment. We like to read all the comments you got. What else?
That's it. Let's go.
We're done.